Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to today's upload. I hope everyone is doing well. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, my merch displayed under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. The audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's first part of the upload is a subscriber submission. I just got off the phone with him, and he is going to come on probably next Monday. Not the 7th, but I'll have him on the 14th. I'm going to talk to him on Sunday the 13th. He shared with me an encounter that is so amazing. That when he was telling me this encounter, my jaw dropped and hit my desk. And I'm not kidding. Because the way he told it, and everything around the encounter just kind of, well, you'll see. All right, you'll see. I'm going to share it with you right now. So this subscriber is in his 40s. Longtime hunter, longtime fisherman, hunting guide, fishing guide, single guy, no kids, not married, hunts, spends the majority of his life on the water and in the woods. That's what he does. That's what he loves. That's who he is. His dad and him were best of friends growing up. His dad was a preacher. He grew up in and around the Maine area and also, excuse me, in the Lake Pickwick area, down in the bottoms. He was gifted as a boy a .38 pistol. We're talking 80s. We're not talking now. We are talking before cancel culture. We are talking before Snowflakeville. So him and his dad were just best of friends, tight, two peas in a pod. His dad had a .357 4-inch barrel pistol. He had his .38. Now, during this time, there's a lot of pets, a lot of dogs, cats showing up massacred, torn up, just no reason for them to be torn up other than, what the word was. The word was satanic cults, sacrificial cults, because it was the 80s, early 80s, satanic panic. Well, they go out on a flat bottom boat one night or day, and they're fishing. So they are in this swamp. Flat bottom boat, it's kind of like a push oar. Dad's in front, boy's in the back. Dad's pushing with the oar or the pole. And it's, just a regular day. They're doing their thing, bonding. Now, what he recalls is the water was 3.5, 4 feet deep. Muddy bottom. Okay. He recalls hearing this. This is the best way he described it. If a duck shook off, that kind of sprinkle you would hear. It wasn't a loud sprinkle. It was just it wasn't a splash, but it was like a sprinkle, kind of like a psh, sprinkled of water hitting the swampy water. And shortly after, he said, you know, Jeff, I don't like the typical explanations of how everything went silent. He said, I don't like saying stuff like that. He goes, I don't like to take away from. He goes, but I don't recall hearing anything after that. He goes, it was this noise. So picture your dog is wet and it shakes off, minus a collar, so there's no noise from a collar, but it shakes off and that wetness kind of hits a pond or something. That's what he hears. Now, the dad and him both hear it. Everything goes silent. No birds. He said the wind kind of died out as well, almost. So dad looks at him and they kind of not really intentionally go toward the noise, but they're still fishing. Almost like, hey, what is that noise? Now, around this time, boar and wild animal, boar is fairly new to the area, I guess is the way he said it. You don't see it too often as much as you do nowadays. So dad and him are moving towards this noise. And there's these kind of like river bushes. I think that's what he called them. It's just some sort of river bush. It looks like a bush out in front of your house, but it's in the water bush, whatever. Big, bushy, full, not very high, but full bush. The boy, the subscriber, is thinking, wow, dad's got his gun out. He's got his gun out. They're going to shoot something. They're going to shoot a boar. They're going to, because that's what they did. That's what they did. That was their lives. They didn't hunt. These folk didn't hunt because they wanted to hunt. They hunted out of necessity. That's who they were. That's how he grew up. All right. His dad didn't go to the local mart for beef steaks. His dad went out and hunted for elk steak or deer steak. Venison steak, I know. But that's who they were. So dad's in front. Dad's standing up. The boy's sitting down. He's still in mode of wanting to hunt. Dad is looking at this creature that the boy thinks is a boar or something other than. The dad looks at the kid. Now they had regular rounds that they'd plink with, and then they had their high-end hollow tip rounds for in case anything was dangerous. Dad looked at the kid and said, swap out your rounds now. At this point, the kid is still thinking, sweet, we're going to shoot a boar. The kid can't see yet. The dad has kind of moved his pole out of the water, almost kind of backing a little bit, but not really. And what the boy sees is a creature pushing through the water on bipedally, pushing through the water. Dad actually makes the statement, "It's a bear. I think it's a bear." Creature is pushing. It's silently pushing this water at a hunched position, everyone. It's not making any noise. It's not using its arms. Okay, so I want you guys to picture this. You're in the water. You're 3 feet. You're waist deep in the water. Maybe a little deeper to your belly button. Something scares you in the water. A water snake is behind you. Non-poisonous, but because I don't want anyone to die. Even in a for instance. So when you're scared, you're going to run. You're going to try to push out of that water as fast as you can. You're going to cup your hands to move. You're going to, you're going to run you're not going to create a V pattern in the water to where you are at the tip of that V and that water separates. You're not creating that. Now, this creature is silently moving. Dad at this point says, "Let's go." They kind of back out of the area. The creature was large. You have to think how it's moving. The creature is moving silently and rapidly through waist-deep water with muck at the bottom. He saw it 1 second and it was gone the next. It moved so fast with that V pattern in the water. That is absolute strength. On top of the water being deep, 3 to 4 feet, with a layer of muck at the bottom, this creature's body was at least 3 to 4 feet out of the water. He estimates it to be 7 to 8, possibly 9 feet tall. Possibly. The kid kind of forgets about it. Dad they move on with their life. Soon the kid is growing up. He's hunting and, he's hunting wild boar one day. And he ponds a couple of them, which means they run them into a pond to slow them down, to tire them out, to pop them off. He notices that the boar is then making a lot of noise. There's a lot of splash. There's a lot of grunts. There's just a lot of noise. And the head, the majority of the body is submerged. All right. The nose and head are out, but the rest is. So in his head, he instantly thinks back to that moment 6 years ago when he was with his dad. And it comes to him, boom, that was not a boar. So then he starts thinking rationally about it. Wow, if it was a fox, or if it was this, if it was that, they would move like a boar. Nose up, head. So then he thinks what his dad had said about a bear. Well, we all know that bear only stand up when they're looking around to figure something out of curiosity or out of a display of kind of, hey, look at me, I'm big. And then they drop to all fours and that's their primary way of transportation. Also, if it was a bear, it would be a really bad, just messy, loud show of nothing if that was a bear. So then he goes and he talks to his dad. And his dad's a preacher, mind you. Retired now at this time. And his dad says to him, it was huge. It was large, huge, bipedal. But its head looked like kind of like a cow. With an elongated snout. So then he starts thinking about, wow, I've been in the woods all my life. I've seen so many interesting things, so many unexplainable things, but what was this? He learns about Dogman and puts 2 and 2 together. Then talks to his dad some more. And his dad says something to the effect of, don't go looking for these things. Because when you go looking for them, they're going to come for you. And I was like, wow, yeah. He's a man of faith. And his belief is that these are demons. His dad's belief these are demons. I believe his view is they are as well. But this is theory, you know. We have no idea. And I'm not going to take anything away from him and his belief. But as a man of God and a man, his dad said, don't go looking for these things. Stop listening to these shows that you're listening to, bud. Because you're a man of faith and they're going to appear to you. Because they want you to question your faith because they are demons. So they want you to question your faith. Now, when he and I were talking about this, it made a lot of sense, and it still does make sense to me. And I'm blown away. I mean, you can tell I'm blown away at this encounter because first and foremost, it's an encounter that you don't hear too often. It's one that really makes sense. So many encounters don't make sense. And I'm not, when I say that, I'm not discrediting people. What I'm saying is it doesn't make sense. These things don't make sense. But now it does a little. It does a little. Because we all genuinely have faith in something. So they come to us and they appear and they want us to question our faith. That's what I'm getting from it. And I'm feeling that, you know? And yeah, so that was this encounter that I was just told last night. I'm very excited for him to come on. We had it planned, but he had some things come up. He's going to share some of his hunting encounters with wolves and stuff like that shouldn't be in areas that they are. But the way he told his encounter, him and his dad's encounter, was so thought-provoking that I cannot wait until the 14th of March for you guys to hear it. So moving on to the next subscriber submission. Today's second subscriber submission. Hey Jeff, how are you? I have an encounter I'd like to share with you. I was out with my two brothers and my dad fishing at around 12 in the morning. Me being maybe 12 or 13 at the time, William was older and Jason was younger. We were on a bridge that stood over a large body of water. I was honestly becoming a bit bored since we had been fishing for the past hour. The only really exciting thing that had happened was when my dad hooked a skate. It was a kick watching him struggle to maintain the pole. He had let out a mean stream of curse words when his line snapped, signaling he had lost the battle. The area was surrounded by forest. It was a beautifully lit night by the moon. I would look over the bridge's wall countless times just to see the moon's light reflecting off the dark, steady waves. The bridge was not made of wood, but concrete. It was strange looking now that I think about it. Instead of being only about 3 feet off the surface of the water, it was maybe 10 or 15. I assumed that it was made for walking or riding across. It was narrow, but just wide enough to fit 3 average people side by side. Upon stating that I was not having much fun, William led Jason and I down to the large blackberry bush. It was set next to the beginning of the bridge, so my dad could still see us. With our group, we had 4 dogs. It seems like a lot, I know, but we currently still have only 2 of said 4. Tragedies happen, I suppose. Back to the story. 2 of the dogs were German Shepherds, the dogs we had currently. Other than them, we had a Border Collie and a Foxhound Akita mix, a very beautiful dog, tall and slender, but with just the right amount of muscle. He was all white, with the exception of a fawn point and freckles, also very, very fast. Here's the confusing but necessary part. The female German Shepherd was Charlie, the male German Shepherd was Simon, the Foxhound mix is Buddy, the Border Collie is Sophie. Okay, we've got that down. On with the occurrence. We weren't really collecting berries, it was just more picking and eating. Every now and then, one of us would shout out, startled by a sudden prick of the finger. From a thorn, Charlie and Buddy were my personal dogs, leaving Jason with Sophie and my dad with Simon. As I'm feeling around for berries with Charlie sitting at my side, Jason left to give my dad some berries. I turned around to watch him go. Sophie was at his heels. Before I could turn back around to face the bush, something caught my eye, something big. My first thought was that it was a tree, that is, until it turned its head toward me. It locked eyes with me. I felt paralyzed with fear. I barely managed to wave my arm around in William's general direction, trying to catch his attention. He must have noticed as he responded with a quiet, "Yeah," turning his head to see what I was looking at. He began to say something, but immediately stopped, all emotion drained from his now pale face. "Who is that?" he asked me. I could only mumble, "What?" Not that I didn't hear him, no, I was correcting him. This thing was massive. Really, the only color you could see was on the creature's eyes. They were wide, human-like. From where I stood, they almost looked orange. The rest was a basic silhouette. I could feel the presence of the dogs next to us. Charlie was snarling, stalking closer bit by bit. I wanted to jump at her, do anything to keep her away from it. Simon was staring intently, as was Buddy, but kept his position in front of William and me. The thing was standing on its hind legs, but looked just huge, like a hairy dog. At least something with long, pointed ears. It had lengthy fingers, or more than likely claws. It leaned forward a bit, but not much. Almost as if it wanted to intensify its glare, or maybe just get a better look at us. The thing was standing on its hind legs, but looked like a big hairy dog, at least something with long pointed ears. It had lengthy fingers, or more than likely claws. It leaned forward a bit, but not too much. Almost as if it wanted to intensify its glare, or maybe get a better look at us. I jumped at the sound of Charlie snapping her jaws at the thing before bounding toward it. I nearly choked on my breath as Buddy followed her. I frantically looked around for Simon, who was cowered behind William, with his head bowed down, growling. William started to run after them, and I started to cry from both fear and a slight anger. I heaved a breath and willed my legs to run as fast as I could. William was on the track team and played baseball, but he was the least of my worries because I was too. It was the fact that we were chasing two dogs and a terrifying animal-like creature. Now that I think back on it, what I did, I must have been insane. Nevertheless, I chased them into the woods. We eventually slowed to a stop as we saw the dogs ahead of us. They were standing defensively, barking, snarling, cryptid. I couldn't see exactly, but it looked as though the creature was now on four legs and smaller. The dogs fell back as though they had been pushed or scurried away from it. As an ear-piercing scream sounded, Buddy took off back toward the bridge, where we later found him. Charlie crouched in front of William and I. The scream sounded strangled, unlike anything I had ever heard. I had let out a fearful shout before I felt something grab a hold of my wrist, which, believe me, did not help the situation. William was trying to pull me along, trying to get us out of there. All three of us ran toward the bridge. The whole way there, it felt as though this creature was right on my heels, me being in the back by maybe a foot. Once we were free from the trees, we didn't stop. We bolted into the water, William and I. Charlie merely followed. Not knowing what to do, I whipped my head around as we stopped and saw nothing but pine trees. I choked on my tears, feeling both relieved and terrified of what had just happened. Back on the bridge, we told our dad. He called Bull, that we were trying to pull a prank. But you heard the scream, right? We would ask him. He'd just blow us off completely and continue to fish. He was, and still is, a skeptic. Gotta see it to believe it is his paranormal motto. I honestly don't know what that thing was, and I don't think I want to. Part of me is curious, but all of me wants to know what I'm dealing with. So, I'll have more information on the subject. I really don't think that I'm the only one who has seen this creature. Tonight's final subscriber submission. Hello, Jeff. I'm really not sure how to address you on this, or really put it into words. I've been a listener of yours for some time now, ever since I had an encounter back in Christmas of 2015. It was this encounter that encouraged me to go to great depths and sacrifices to find out and discover more of these creatures. I will tell you my experience first before I go ahead and tell you of myself. My experience is not much of this, by far nothing compared to what people have gone through with these things. To be quite honest, it was stupid luck, if anything. 2015, I had gone over to my cousin's house for Christmas. Now, it was me, my brother, and my cousin that actually saw the Dogman. The three of us, in our younger days as kids, would explore all of the woods at night. We did a lot of exploration when it came to abandoned buildings, going to places that were supposedly haunted, and things of that nature. Well, this night, we decided we would go and do it again for old time's sake. My cousin owned a decent amount of property, plus we had never actually gone into the depths of it for some reason. Anyway, we packed up some stuff and brought a few pellet guns to shoot targets and scare off anything that was unwanted. Mind you, this is Texas, and the area had some bobcats and whatnot. That night it was bright out, as it was clear skies and a full moon. It was so much light, so we didn't even need to use our flashlights to walk around. We had been walking for a while when we came to a clearing about the size of half a football field or so. The grass was super long. It was at least waist high with a few dead mesquite trees. As we were talking about nonsense, my brother stops us and asked if we heard the noise of something walking in the grass. Of course, there was no need for him to say anything. I had heard it as well. At first, I thought it was just the wind in the grass. Our cousin said he had heard it, but was only when we were moving and stopped, when we did as well. As we talked amongst ourselves we started to get this gut feeling you get when things are not right. We stood there looking around to see what was up. Nothing. So my brother told my cousin to shoot a blank shot in the air with the pellet gun. In case you didn't know, shooting a pellet gun dry is a lot louder than shooting it with something in it, as our intentions was to scare whatever it was that was in the grass. Our cousin took the shot, nothing. Then my brother pumped his and shot a live round in the direction of where the noise was coming from. Again, nothing. We didn't complete shrug it off, as we did used to hunt a lot on foot and learn to trust our guts. We decided the best thing to do was to get off the grass as fast as possible and get to the tree line. As we started to walk faster, we could definitely hear the noise. It was a lot louder and heavier of a noise, if that makes sense. This time we knew it was a big animal or something because it was moving fast and hard. My cousins loused a live round and shot in the direction of the grass that we could now see moving. Didn't know if we hit it or not, but doubt it, even if it felt the blast of a pellet. Now, mind you, all this is happening, like maybe 2 minutes. At the time, it felt like it was an eternity. My mind is racing as to what is coming to get us at this time. I knew it was not a mountain lion. Way too much crashing noise for one. And we don't got any bears in this area. Well, before any one of us could say anything or do anything, more the blasted thing showed itself. Jeff, I kid you not, I've never known a human body could go in such a state of shock. My blood ran cold, and it felt like my stomach was in my throat, but like it came crashing into my throat, that it felt like the wind was knocked out of me. I didn't know what to do, whether to run or stay. I was also paralyzed with fear. I know it was the same for my brother and my cousin, as they didn't do anything but stand there in shock. This Dogman stood up as tall as a dead mesquite tree, which was at least 2 to 3 feet from me. I stand 6 foot tall. I never felt so small in my life. It had piercing yellow eyes that felt like it was cutting right through me. It was like a brownish black kind of color. It stood only about 15 to 20 feet from us. I wish at the time I had taken the time to look more at this thing. I want to say it stared at us for a good 7 to 8 seconds before it got onto all fours and ran right at us. When it did, we broke out of our trance and booked it. We dove under some underbrush of shrubs and a fallen tree. We lay there for 10 minutes or so in the silence before we discussed what to do. I suggested that we make a run for the neighbor's house, since it would be closer to us than the actual house. It took us a while to actually get the courage to get out and run, but when we finally did, we ran as fast and as hard, and caring about what was in front of us. We made it to the neighbor's house without any incident. We did not talk a whole lot about this. We did go over what happened that night, and I don't think any of us slept. We just couldn't wrap our minds around what we had seen. That's the end of the experience. We don't really talk much about it. My brother almost refuses to talk about it, and my cousin will sometimes hold a conversation. After this event, I stumbled on a video talking about Dogman. Ever since then, I've been doing lots of investigative things, trying to find fact or fiction. Now I'm trying to find a video of one, get pictures, further evidence, knowledge of these creatures. I know the government, or at least contractors, are on to this, and for some reason not telling the public, but they are starting to come into the open more and more. People are having encounters with them. Just wondering if you want to share what you know about them with me, and I will share what I know with you. Sincerely, NF. I'm going to reach out to NF and see if he wants to come on and share that experience. Definitely a creepy experience. If you're if your experience is the second experience that I shared about the boys with their dad hunting, or fishing, and the dogs, for some reason, when I printed it out from my email, it didn't print your email out with it. If this is you in your experience, please contact me, because I really, really would love to have you on and share this in your words. With that, I hope you all enjoyed tonight's upload. I honestly am super excited about the 14th. So we can hear that encounter in his words, and you guys can be as captivated as I was. So with that, please everyone, practice kindness, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all. May he guide us on that path that we call life. Until later tonight, my friends. Till later tonight.